Fine layer you have. Quite cozy. And here's the gold-berry bank loot. Let's start dividing it up. No need. We'll pool the funds. What? No tricks, Mad Jim. I want my share. Hold your horses. I'm the one in charge here. And here's this to remind you. Yep. Take cover, Charlie. It's on. Throw down your 6-shooters and get out from behind that gunpowder or I'll blow you to kingdom come. And no sudden moves or my finger may twitch. You'll pay for this one day, Mad Jim. I need a shave now. I look like a cactus. By the way, which would you prefer, hemp or lead? We could flip a coin for it. Golly, that was a lousy shave. It doesn't matter, Mad Jim. No one will see you in your casket. Lucky Luke, still alive. Nobody likes reading homework comics. Those are the comics that people might tell you have to read in order to understand what's going on in modern day stuff. And whether that's reading Golden Age superheroes or even Silver Age heroes that have comics where there's just a little bit too many words per page for modern sensibilities, or whether that's trying to understand the comics that influenced your favorites, right? You don't really need to read the Charlton comics in order to understand Watchmen, even though it might help with your understanding. You don't need to read Golden Age Batman in order to understand The Dark Knight Returns. And you don't always need to read a lot of old comics just because they were influential. Now, that's not to say that there aren't hidden gems there. I do love discovering that there was something from long before that still has meaning and value and speaks to our sensibilities today. I recently read one of those comics when I read the Scrooge McDuck comics. I think that those are something that, even though they are from long ago, that they have a potency and a power that holds up to the present. But I've been on a bad run for a little bit reading old comics, especially these old French and Belgian comics. From the Smurfs to a lesser extent Tintin, and a greater extent Blake and Mortimer. I have not loved a lot of these older French comics. I've liked them at times, but overall it's been a bit unfortunate. I would love to love these older French comics, and I think maybe my sensibilities are just a little too modern. I need to read some more recent French stuff and Belgian stuff in order to really get an appreciation for the country and its artistic sensibilities. And I'll be doing that going forward, reading some more modern French stuff that I do think I will like a little bit more. But I think maybe we found something that I can really speak to, something that is right in my Q zone, something that fills me with dread, and that is a French person's understanding of what the American West is like. Because today we are discussing Lucky Luke, a comic that is, again, a Belgian person's idea of a Western, of a cowboy, and as somebody that was born and raised in Texas, lived here my whole life, I feel like I have a thing or two to say about cowboys and their depiction in popular culture. Most of that's to say they don't really exist the way that you thought they did. The movies are all made up, and the modern people claiming to be cowboys are LARPing. The rodeo is just cosplay for people from the West. But that doesn't mean that these stories still don't have meaning, that they still can't speak to our understanding and sensibility of the clash of cultures of the civilization of westward expansion, the ongoing erasure and genocide of the indigenous Americans, and the creation of the modern America as it is today. All of that and more to come in a discussion of Lucky Luke. If this is your first time here, let me welcome you to my channel where I am reading through 52 comics in 52 weeks as part of an ongoing challenge that you can participate in. I have a full list of all categories in the description of this video that you can participate. If you'd also like to show this channel some love for absolutely free, you can like this video and subscribe to my channel. Both of those things help boost in the algorithm and make sure you never miss an update from me. You can find my writing over at spikestonehand.com. There I have weekly new comics guides and a weekly roundup of comics industry news, reviews, interviews, other YouTubes and podcasts that I think that you might find interesting. And finally, if you want to throw me a few dollars over on patreon.com/diviningcomics, you can get your name put at the end of this video, and maybe you will get some future benefits if I ever get around to doing that and find free time in my life. But without further ado, welcome to my channel, Divining Comics, where I explore the magic hidden between the panels of your favorite comics.
Boys and girls, your attention, please. Presenting a new exciting radio program featuring the thrilling adventures of an amazing and incredible personality.
If you've never heard of Lucky Luke comics, you're probably not alone. This is one of those many comic series from Europe that I did not realize was as popular as it was, but it's been translated into dozens of languages. It had 40 plus volumes by the original creators and another 40 plus since they've died by successive writers and artists. It's been adapted into animations and video games, and overall is just an incredibly popular character. But if you're anything like me, you've never heard of Lucky Luke or his horse Jolly Jumper or his run-ins with the Dalton gang. There's recurring enemies in these comics that I think do have a major influence on the Duck comics that I read earlier this year. There is definitely a lot of similarities between Lucky Luke and in The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, and perhaps Carl Barks was drawing from this, perhaps Don Rosa and the Lucky Luke original creators. Morris, the cartoonist, later joined by the writer Renee Goscinny, were all drawing from the same well, and there was a case of mutual inspiration and not of one taking inspiration from the other. But regardless, to say these are comics that have had a broader influence on the world as a whole, and its perhaps understanding of the Western genre, drawn from probably most likely the filmed and televised serials that America was producing in the heyday of the Western, right? And this is a genre that is defined by its creation after the period was over, right? During the time of the Wild West that's actually being depicted post-Civil War, you didn't really have the novels and then later on the movies and TV shows that really took off. You only got those once the West was dead, right? The train came in and brought in the collection of genre tropes that became the Western. And these tropes then traveled across the globe and inspired all sorts of stories, from Japanese samurai films to French cop films like Les Samurai, and obviously this Belgian comic, Lucky Luke. And it may seem like I'm kind of rambling a little bit, that I'm trying to give a lot more context than usual, and that's because there isn't a whole lot here to say, other than the fact that I had a good time reading Lucky Luke comics. They're fun. It's nothing artfully done on a masterful level. It's not going to blow you away as a secret magnum opus. It's just a fun time at the comics, and sometimes that's all you can ask for. So I read the very first volume, which is Dirk Diggler's Gold Mine. In this, it has 2 stories, and it's a 50-page volume, very easily read. I think I read it in like half an hour or less. It's very breezy. So in the first story, Dick Digger is a panhandler who's discovered the Mother Lode, a gold mine, and he is so excited to share the wealth with his family. He hides the map to this gold mine in the bottom of his rum bottle and joins Lucky Luke back to town so he can put a patent on the gold mine and claim it for himself. But while staying at the hotel, a couple of banditos overhear his recent success and they rob him. They find not only the gold that he had as proof that there was a mine there, but also his map, and they flee. Lucky Luke chases after them, and of course after a long adventure, he catches up with the two bandits, and they are put to jail. It sounds like a very simple story. That's because it is. That's part of the power of Western stories is you're not ever really wowed by their plot. It's kind of the execution, the implementation of these familiar tropes that gets you. And Lucky Luke does a pretty good job of it. Not in the sense that it has really interesting characters, but that it tells the story in a visual way that is very suited for comics. In fact, I think the best comparison I can give to this volume, which is high praise in my books, is that there are a number of action sequences that feel downright Looney Tunes. It's really cool to see the kind of back and forth visual language of fighting, of two characters one-upping each other in a physical battle of body and wits. And one character coming out on top at the end. It was a very fun, cartoonish violence, very well done. And I think that those are the standout sequences of this story. And the next one, which is another similar one, the interesting twist about the second story here is that there's a villain who is a doppelganger for Lucky Luke. And of course, Lucky Luke is swapped for him in the jail. They're about to execute Luke when he escapes. He captures his lookalike, Jim, and the two bandits that freed him, and then they're sent to jail. Very straightforward again, but again, these Looney Tunes battle sequences are the highlight of the story. The creators have the good sense to know when to be quiet, when to just let the images do the storytelling, and it's something that especially these older comics can often struggle with. I was once reading an article about the way that Stan Lee felt the need to insert dialogue and sound effects into every single action sequence of the early Marvel comics. Steve Ditko quipped that what would Prince Valiant be if it had Marvel's sound effects and speed lines that Stan insisted on? And I think he's got kind of a good point, right? Part of the magic of these Lucky Luke comics is just the simple, clean storytelling of an action sequence, something that I think a lot of modern creators could draw from, especially in the way that it uses the high panel count of the older style and of the French album style to kind of deliver a real back and forth in a way that modern American comics, especially with their 2 or 3 panels a page and more visual, symbolic nature of the fights, and kind of going for a visceral reaction instead of actually depicting the back and forth, could really learn from. I thought that there was I would love if more comics that were published today, superhero comics, had this kind of fun, clever back and forth in their fight sequences. It's a little cartoony, sure, but I think it really creates a visual sense here, right? This is cinematic comics in the best possible way. Of course, this wouldn't be a European comic from the 1960s if I didn't have complaints about the racism found within, primarily the way that it deals with the both Mexican characters and the indigenous American characters. They're beyond stereotype. It's lazy, it's offensive, it's just not fun to read, and it doesn't really add anything to the story, right? There wouldn't be anything lost if the Mexican characters weren't treated as pure, lecherous, evil villains. If the indigenous American characters said things in more full sentences and didn't say how to begin every sentence, right? It's just lazy. It's not fun to read, and it's an unfortunate artifact of reading all these older comics. I think that if you were to, again, try and tell these same stories, you could do a lot of the same things that these comics do today that do hold up in a lot of the visual storytelling senses, but obviously these plot elements I think should be left in the dustbins of history. Shouldn't have even been here in the first place, to be honest. So that's an unfortunate thing that comes from reading these comics. So, moving to wrap things up, would I continue reading these comics? I mean, probably not. They're, again, for children. They're an easy read, but if I had to for some reason, if a year from now I'm making a Divining Comics Challenge sequel part 2, or I have to finish some of the volumes that I only read 1 or 2 issues of, this would be one of the ones that I'd be least upset to have to revisit. I'll put it that way. Again, it's for children. It's not necessarily anything of heft of meat here, but it's pretty good for what it is. And if again, other than the racial depictions, I would hand this to a kid today, and I would assume that they could have a good time reading it. Maybe some of the later volumes that do not engage in these stereotypes would be totally fine to hand to any children. And I've been reading online that a lot of these later volumes even had a number of historical figures. They incorporated bits of real world history into this fictional world, and that sounds like it could be fun for a child. So, definitely with your parental guidance, scanning and making sure the issue's contents aren't objectionable, hand this to a kid. I have no problem with that. Who would I recommend this for? Again, if you're a fan of the Looney Tunes style action and you want to see some of that in old comics, these are breezy reads. They're light, they're fun. You pick one at random and have a good time. That's who I would recommend this for. Thanks again for watching this video. If you could, please, again, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to never miss an update. But until next time, keep reading comics and never let the magic of comics die.
Old Enoch, he lived to be 365 when the Lord came and took him back to heaven alive. I saw the light from heaven shining all around. I saw the light come shining, I saw that light come down.